Less than 2 weeks to go now, former President Trump is seeing the tide turn in his favor in some spots. Look at the latest election forecast from our partners at Decision Desk headquarters. They are putting the president's odds of winning now at 52%. A month ago, that number was at 45%, showing just how tight the race has gotten. Joining us now, Drew McCoy, president of Decision Desk headquarters. Tell us about this recent shift and some of the news events that have happened between that percentage change.
Yeah, good morning. It's been a tight race all along. It remains a tight race. We have seen for the first time in our forecast model, Donald Trump overtake Kamala Harris. He had been leading Joe Biden before the switch at the top of the ticket. So this obviously shows some momentum as we get closer to election day for the former president. But again, these are very tight. You know, the difference between a 55-45 race and a 52-48 is not that big of a deal. But again, we're looking at trends. We're looking at polling tightening in a lot of the battleground states. So it's going to be a close race.
Let's look at some of these battleground states. North Carolina, for example. I mentioned a moment ago that Trump has a slight lead in North Carolina, up from what it was a couple of weeks ago. What else are you seeing there?
Yeah, North Carolina is a really important state. At first, it was thought to be one of Vice President Harris's best chance to take a Trump state from 2020. It looks like in the polling that Trump is holding his advantage there, and that's key because he needs to hold this 2020 map and then to flip a couple of states. His easiest path is to flip Georgia, where he's also doing well, and then you move into the upper Midwest and Pennsylvania, those battleground states that we've looked at. So both campaigns are going to spend a lot of time and effort in the Southeast, and then they're going to move up to Pennsylvania, where we're seeing a very tight race. It's basically a coin flip in our forecast model right now.
Yeah, razor thin in Pennsylvania. Has that really changed? Has there been anything of note in Pennsylvania over the last month?
Pennsylvania's actually stayed fairly consistently close. It's probably considered one of Vice President Harris's more challenging states of the three blue wall states, as they're known. We've seen Wisconsin go a little bit towards Trump over the last month, and even Michigan's getting closer. She still has a lead there in our forecast model, but all these states are well within just a couple of points of each other. As the campaign really comes down to the final days, you know, voters are now voting, but also people are paying more attention. This is crunch time.
You mentioned Michigan. If Harris loses Michigan, is it realistic that she can reach 270?
It gets challenging, obviously. You know, there still would be Nevada and Arizona. Those are states where Donald Trump is doing well. It's really, most people, I think, looking at the map for the vice president is those blue wall states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So that's where they're going to be focusing a lot of their attention.
When people at home look at this, and as I'm looking at how close it is in these battleground states, take us to election night and how long we may potentially be waiting if things remain as close as they appear to be in the polls.
Yeah, I think the first indications we'll have of how things are going will be North Carolina and Georgia. That'll give us an idea if the map's expanding for either candidate. And then we're going to start looking at those upper Midwestern states. If they split, now they generally go together. They've gone together for numerous cycles. If they start to split, say Pennsylvania isn't the first state that's callable, perhaps it's Wisconsin. If they split, then we could be looking at going to Nevada and Arizona 4 or 5 days later. So it'll be probably early morning hours. We'll start to have some indications from some of those states around 11 to 1, but it'll probably be in the wee hours of the morning before we know exactly how they're shaking out, perhaps into Wednesday morning.
Yeah, it's no longer election day. It's election week and hopefully not election month, but certainly days. Given the tight margins, Drew, for potential legal battles, what are some of the states most likely to see disputes on election day? Help us read those tea leaves.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It will come down to margins. You know, if a race is within recount range, obviously that's going to set off. If it's just outside of recount range, so there might be challenges to try and get it into recount range. You know, each side is staffing up with lawyers, no doubt. We've seen it over the course of a number of cycles in a number of states. So that's something we'll be watching, but really we're just focusing on the votes, and we'll see how the rest of it plays out after that.
All right, Drew, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.